So welcome, everyone. My name is Samuel Kamochu, as you've heard. I'm happy to be here today to take you through the next dose of what you're doing as part of the Natujenge Software Engineering Bootcamp. Just a quick reminder, we are still in week 5. Allow me just to share my screen. So we are really excited to see you here, because we know today is a public holiday in Kenya. It's a Mashujaa Day. So we appreciate the sacrifice and we consider you guys as Shujaas. So I can go straight to what you're doing. So in this week and in the coming weeks, we will be working on a hackathon. So this week is just to set stage for the hackathon. And the hackathon, we're assuming it's week 6, 7, and worst case, week 8, where you're supposed to develop specify design, develop a solution as a team. And you'll be able to appreciate the whole process of just ideation all the way to launching a product that can be used by the user. So we selected one problem to be used for these week 5 for us to model a real world problem. And one of the things that we said yesterday is that, if I can do a recap, we say that real world problems, they involve people who are facing challenges that we believe can be solved using technology. So, and the product that we selected, I don't want to go through everything that we discussed. I hope you can see my notes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So we said that we want to address the challenges of a home baker. Luckily, I've been able to talk to 2 of them today, and I have just had a brief call with the third one who is with us today in the call. So, and as I mentioned earlier, we have Caro Njeri, I believe, Maina, who is here with us and who will help us in appreciating whether we are actually thinking of a hypothetical scenario or we are really trying to solve a real challenge that they have. So the challenge is, we have a home baker who has challenges in engaging with their customers. That's the assumption. So they work at home and they bake at home. They don't have a lot of resources and they have a lot of stuff to deal with. So we want to make their life easier. So one of the things that we said is that a home baker who has challenges in engaging their customers, actually, if I can summarize, one of the things we said is that we want to help a home baker in 2 areas. And the 2 areas are, one, in customer engagement, and the other one is just being able to organize their calendar, if I may put it in a different word, and having the right reminders for what they do. And that's it. So customer engagement, I think we had mentioned earlier, so allow me to mention this, and then Jerry will be able to tell us probably in the next 5 minutes whether we are being hypothetical or it's a real challenge, and whether there are other bigger challenges that you have that we could probably listen to. So in terms of customer engagement, we are assuming that Caro gets orders from people. So one of the things is we want to ensure that they record order taking is made easy. So they'll be able to take orders on the system. So we will be creating a system. And for Njeri, we say that this is a web-based system. So that's web-based, but basically mobile-friendly. So you can do all these things from your phone. So you just have an account and you take orders. Once you take the orders on the system, one of the things that we said is that the customer will be notified. And once the customer is notified on order, actually, I've just thought about something. I don't need to write this because we have some sections that will fill down there. So I'll go down there to look at them. But you have a home baker who has challenges in engaging their customers. We would like to complement what they do by adding things like delivery thank you messages once an order has been delivered, order messages once you have received an order and recorded it on your platform. Then you can give them the details of the payments and all that. get feedback. Once the order has been closed or the cake has been delivered, you can always send a thank you message and eventually have a link to maybe a survey that they can fill in to get the feedback. And then the other is we have reminders for the order deliveries that you have made. Essentially, we are assuming that, Carol, you serve people who want to get a birthday cake. So one of the things that we recorded is that if you provide a cake today, or you serve me with a cake this year on July 15th, then next year, July 15th, we can help you to ensure that you have a calendar and you have the reminders of those people who you need to engage for repeat business. So that's what the solution is supposed to help you with. And then we also want to improve how you engage with your customers. I think this is repeated, but we are just writing as the ideas were coming. So we start with basic notifications and then we do other products. Now, before I give you a chance, Carol, to speak, I want to highlight some of the key things that we expect on the system. So we are assuming that the people involved are you, the baker, and the customer. The baker is the main user of the platform that you're going to create, and the customer buys the cake from the baker. And we assume that all your customers have a phone and they can receive an SMS or an email, and they also have a smartphone and they can access web, maybe just to fill in a survey in case you need to give them feedback. So the assumption is that those users can also, the baker can access using the web app and the SMS channel. So you can receive SMSs to be reminded that you have an order on Friday, if today is Wednesday, which you can configure. And we can also, for the customer, they can receive SMSs and emails to tell them that the order has been recorded, a payment has been received, and all those things. And they can either interact with the system by giving feedback, so that will be relayed to you. So let me go down here to tell you now the requirements that we specified officially. Now, we say that you're building a customer engagement platform for bakers. And this will allow bakers to communicate and get feedback from the customers. You confirm when the order is placed, you confirm when the order is delivered, you confirm when payments are recorded. And it will also be a tool that will allow you to, that will remind you of future events that you need to do, either orders that are pending and you have to be reminded, or potential sales and you have to reach out to the customers. So the scope is we want to build a web app. You'll be accessing it on a smartphone, on a browser, and it will look nice like an app. And it will also be able, the system, once you take an order, the system will be able to send out maybe the SMS or the email to the customer automatically. Now, let me talk about the users. Sorry, this is for design. I'll just focus on the things, the product functions that we highlighted, and this is what concerns you, Caro, and then you can give your feedback. So the first thing is, you as a baker, you should be able to place an order on the system. So you can take an order and say, this guy has requested for this order, and these are the details, and this is when the cake should be delivered or something should be delivered, and these are the details of the customer and their mobile number. And the system will trigger SMSs to the customer to tell them that the order has been taken. We send them the payment information. So here I'll mention that here the system should trigger notification to the customer automatically. That's what we said yesterday. And it should also, and the notification will include, information included should be the amount to pay and the payment details, and maybe any order info that is relevant to the customer. E.g., you have placed an order of 3 kg cake, red velvet, and that's it. Now, the other thing that will happen is that the baker should also be able to record a payment. So you can go and say that order X, there is a payment that has been received. So you can indicate that you've received Kenya shillings 1,000 of order X. And because of that, the system should generate notification to the customer. to the customer. Caro, I'm sorry, I hope you are not time constrained because I feel like maybe I need to request for a few of your minutes so that we can, I hope you're not constrained. You can give us a few more minutes. I know we had said we will do just a few minutes.
This is fine. I'm fine.
Okay. So the system should generate a notification to the customer and it should tell them maybe the balance in case there is a pending balance. So if they pay in full, then we don't have to do that. Now, then the other thing is you as a baker could go and mark an order as delivered. You can mark an order as delivered. So that the system should allow you to, or even cancel maybe, or maybe I can add another one. A baker should be able to cancel an order. So of course, if you cancel the order, you basically don't receive notification. So here we'll have that mark an order as delivered, and the system should generate notification after sale service notification. This could be considered a thank you message and probably with a link to the feedback form. I know for home bakers, you might have received the feedback when you delivered. If the customer was unhappy, they could have spoken non-verbally. But as you grow your business, this is something that you could get in future. So here we will cancel the order. And maybe we should optionally notify the customer that the order has been canceled. So just in case they had received an initial SMS telling them that the order was in place. Then the other thing is a baker should be able to receive reminders, order reminders. So you can have configure notify the customers, notify the baker in N days before the D-Day. This is to ensure that in your busy schedule, Caro, you don't get into a situation where you forget that you have an order on Friday. We'll probably tell you on Wednesday so that you do whatever that you have to do then, and maybe on the D-Day. On the D-Day. So in the morning, we can tell you have these orders that you have to serve today, just for convenience. Then a baker should receive a reminder for potential repeat sale. So this is, we can say maybe 1 month to anniversary or birthday of a previous customer. We can send you 1 month or 2 weeks, or we can send you a message. We send a message to the baker. System should send a reminder to the baker. Now, customers should receive order notification. This one is as catered above. We have said during the order part of the order process, order recording process. And customer should receive part of order payment process. So it's just a leg, but we need to state it because whatever you state has to be tested for those guys who now will do quality assurance for the system. So part of, this one is part of the delivery recording process. So if the baker logs in and says, I have delivered, then we trigger an SMS to the customer to tell them that they have received that. Now, in addition to that, based on the conversations that we had in the morning with some of the bakers, I think I would happily mention that there was a baker who said that it should be possible, if possible. This is a bonus requirement from a baker who we had a conversation with in the morning. And they were saying that they have sometimes a till number and they want people to pay via the till number. So if possible, we can integrate, the system should be able to receive payments should be able to process payments from a payment gateway. E.g., some of you who, and this one was to ensure that you integrate with a payment gateway. E.g., you can have an aggregator or even integrate to M-Pesa. So that was a requirement that when we send the SMS in this stage here with the payment details, the customer can either, the payment details could be the payment details, manual payment details, or a link with a checkout page. I know some of you already know what a checkout page is. The one that you go online to just, you put in there, or the amount is populated, you just confirm your number is already set, and all you need to do is to just say and click, and then you get an SMS, an M-Pesa pop-up, you put in the PIN, and we proceed. So that's essentially what was given as a bonus. And I think also one of the things that we had not said when we were discussing is part of the things that we had discussed was the baker might require, for these SMSs, they might require to make some payment, which will ask Caro to tell us what would be a suitable commercial model. But the other element was the baker should be able to top up their account for the subscription services. So the essential idea, and Caro, here we were having a conversation, we were debating, because for the system to run, it requires to be sustainable. So we wanted to hear what would work. I think we had posted a challenge to a few bakers. We had said, what if we tell you that in a month you have an allowance of 100 bob or 200 bob? For you to get maybe 50 or 100 messages that you can use. So that means that if you have 50 reminders or 50 customer engagements in a month, it will take from the 100 bob. But we were thinking of just a small subscription fee that is suitable for the Hustler Nation. And so we also wanted to get your view on what would work. And also the other baker who brought in this element, they said for integrated payments, we also need to be mindful of the payment details. Now, I want to take over this moment, mindful of the charges, because if the payment integrations are very costly to the bakers, it can work against the value and the efficiency that we have. So in a nutshell, Caro, what we want to do is we want you to have to make some of what things that you do on a day-to-day basis easier. We do not want you to forget next year that you could make sales. We do not want you to, we want you to ensure that you brand your business. Actually, one of the things I forgot to mention here, which was brought, a baker, the system should support the configuration, the system should support using of a branded SMS for the baker's business. E.g., I'll give you an example. One of the businesses that we had is one of the guys we were talking. It's called Cake Yard. So they would like SMSs to come from Cake Yard, which grows your brand even as a home baker. And you can now promote, people can, okay, you've received an SMS from Cake Yard. I don't know what's the name of your business, but Caro, I can give it to you now for you to tell us more about whether this is a hypothetical issue that we have. You can react to what we have given, and then you can also tell us what are your biggest pains. Besides whether this is a real issue, are we dreaming? Is it something that adds value to you? Is it something that you're willing to pay? And even how much would you part to ensure that you have a tool that works for you on a day-to-day basis? Yes. So over to you.
This is actually very impressive. You've covered everything, especially when you've said that maybe this year I had an order for a birthday cake. And now next year, I can't remember that. But if I have a system that helps me to remember that, I can actually engage with the customer and I can get another order. So that means more money for me. So, what else? I think you've covered everything. Okay, maybe can you go just a little bit kidogo somewhere tena? Kuna pahali.
So maybe I can.
You were talking about, I think maybe for the payment for the system. Okay, we can do like what, how like Spotify or what, or Netflix, you put the account number or something, then you can pay the system monthly. I don't know, something like that.
This is for who? Who is paying who? For what?
Okay. Me paying you guys now, the owner of this.
Okay. Yeah. So what you're saying is that we can have, but this one is, there are two payments. There is one customer paying you and you paying for the service. This is maybe let's call it subscription service. So you're saying we can do what? We can borrow. This is a comment, borrow from, you said Spotify or Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where we deduct money every month. Maybe that's 100. Okay. So we look at it. But of course, this one is not a key functional requirements for you. This is for the product. But we're happy to hear that actually when considering how you can pay.
So about this M-Pesa. Okay. I've not quite gotten that part. Where
how do the customers pay you today?
They just send money to my phone.
They send money to your phone.
Yeah.
So you don't have a bill. This one is optional. So the idea was, what if you had a pay bill? Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying like maybe you should have that prompt, like a prompt that comes in a nini. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like the way you go buy. I don't know what you buy online and you pay via M-Pesa.
Oh. Okay, I don't know how that usually works.
But
maybe you can.
Yeah, maybe the experience I can give you is this. So what happens is you go create an order. Your work should end there. So the SMS should tell the customer to make a payment through and give you the, either they give you a link where you go pay, or we give you the till number where you pay to the number, or we give you the number of Caro and you pay directly to the number. If you pay directly to Caro's number, Caro has to fill in the payments manually on the system. But if you pay to till number or pay bill, we can find a way of how we can get notifications real time to us. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
Yes, that's what we are saying.
Okay. I think that will be useful. If you can find a way to do that with till number. Though I don't have one yet. But if there's a way, I could even get a till number just to make work easier.
Yeah. So your biggest benefit you're seeing is those reminders. What else? You don't think engaging the customer to tell them of the order?
Getting customer feedback also is nice. Okay, to be able to notify the baker some days before, because I just don't do this work. I actually work somewhere else, but so sometimes I can forget.
Yeah.
So it's good to be reminded you have an order in 2 days. So ninakaa tu nikikumbuka. So I think it's good. I don't have anything else, maybe.
Yep.
Mm.
Okay. So would you be willing, is this a service that you can pay for?
Yes, definitely.
And how much are you willing to pay for? We're not saying that. If you say a high amount, we don't mind. If you say a low amount, it's okay. We will just, how much do you think you can part with on a monthly basis if you're told to pay on a monthly basis? Because that's the consideration.
Okay. So
Would
I'm
the 100 bob be too high? Maybe I can guide you.
no, I think 100 bob is fair. Or
1,000 is too high.
I think it's okay. Maybe 1,000 is
high.
Is high. Maybe
Yes.
500.
Okay. Anything between 100 to 500 would not shock you so much, would not chase you away, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have had Bwana Kinodia. Do you want to say something? Yesterday you were discussing that. And this is part of understanding the product. Now we are doing analysis and now we're even getting into the commercial conversations. This is a real user. Sorry, proceed.
I just wanted to ask Jerry, what other challenges do you face apart from forgetting maybe a client's order that you think we could
okay. Can we put do you have like somewhere maybe we can specify the order? Maybe he or she wants like what you've said, a red velvet cake. Okay, and also decorations. Like there's some people who are so choosy, and when they details like
capture the order name and the finer details, yeah? Yes, like details.
Yeah, because you might actually sell maybe the name to be written. And that could cause chaos. Yeah.
And I think I will also say an attachment. Sometimes you have an image, someone has told you, I need an order of Cocomelon.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we deliver this thing, you're happy to use that system, Carol?
Yes.
Okay. At least just for the confidence sake, there was one person, and it's so weird that Carol said that your first response was the reminder for next year's business. I talked to Kara Baker this morning, and that was the first response. So
that's so nice.
Yes. So it appears like we were not far off with our hypothesis that problem is a big problem for the bakers. There are other things that other people brought, but in the initial phase, we want to do an MVP. But I'll also mention, Amos, that one of the things that the headache that bakers face, and this is phase 2, one of the things that was mentioned by a baker was the fact that stuff to do with pricing and ingredients.
Yes.
It's a headache, and they want to know that now that unga is to 10 or 200, how does it affect the pricing of the various things that we have? So it's a thought that I've heard from 2 bakers this morning, but we had agreed that we could actually consider it in a later phase. So we start with the initial one that can help you with the basics, your day-to-day operations. Someone actually said, could you have an ERP? That was a very tech-savvy baker who even knows what ERP is that could help us capture this thing. But these are real issues coming from the bakers. And Carol, thank you so much. I don't know whether there is anything you want to add, but before you give your parting shot, I wanted to say that we are planning another session, probably early next week, with more bakers, where we can get the calls and maybe we can present what we have put up together as the proposal, and we can get reactions from more bakers. I don't know whether you're willing to be part of that conversation, but it's one of the things we are considering. So that we bring about 4 or 5 bakers, home bakers, and they can make noise and tell us their biggest pains. then part of software engineering, the whole team can confirm is we are solving a problem, and we have to put you at the center of everything, and you have to ensure that we create something that works for you. So Jerry, over to you. I'm happy to hear that you're happy to engage further and work with us in this journey to ensure that what we create works, but allow you to give a parting shot, and then in a few minutes we can now allow you to go if you wish, or you can remain and move on now to the tech stuff.
Okay. So thank you so much for allowing me to join you guys. This is a very nice system. Okay, when the person who Agnes told me to engage here, I was very open to it because online is the way to go for now, right? At this point in life. And it will make work so much easier. Maybe when the business grows, it can help me a lot. As I begin, as it is small now, itanisaidia sana, like nikiendelea to grow. But I think you have captured everything. That maybe if I can think of something else, I will tell you.
Yes.
But I'm so grateful to learn this today.
Okay. Sawa. Thank you so much, Caro, for the short notice and accepting to join us. So feel free to hang around, or you can leave at pleasure. We will have a lot of technical conversations. So, but it's still in the line of ensuring that we appreciate the problem and we understand where you're coming from, your biggest pains, and we create something that works for you. So, and we are very, very delighted to know that you are willing to work with us in this journey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye and thanks.
Bye.
Now, today's session is to move further. And I think as of the last conversation we had last time, I'll go back to the perspective. We said that our system is supposed to have interfaces at the various angles. But now that we have new requirements, allow me to draw how our context diagram looks like. I'm using Draw.io. So this system we are calling, I think right now we are calling it Julisha, but I want to change tactics and call it Baked because we are dealing with bakers. And I think it's evolving to another idea that we had with one of our good friends around here. There are different users. Now we are doing documentation. So the first actor in this system is the baker. So the baked is the system, and it's the system of interests. For those of you who are like, I don't like documentation, documentation can be very easy. Now, the other guy who we need to consider in this flow, is also another guy called the customer. So the customer of the baker, the 31 guys that the prophet is talking about, Prophet Waithaka. Yeah. So these are the different entities that need to interact with the system. And now, because of the conversations, how the conversations are moving, we also have a payment gateway. So we have a payment gateway. Or let me just put the payment gateway on this side, although sometimes it could be, yeah. Now, for those of you who watched the video that we did yesterday on the SRS, so this is what we do. So we have a payment gateway that has been introduced. We have a SMS gateway that has been introduced, if you remember, because our system should send SMSs. We are dealing with Kenyans. And then finally, we have another one, which we're calling the email server. And that's it. All the scenarios we've discussed now, you need to ensure that you can see each of the guys that's supposed to play part. So we can come here and say, we have a downstream system here that we also call the payment gateway, now that the payment has come into play. So the payment gateway, and we will discuss that. Now, finally, we have the authentication servers. So this is the authentication servers. All servers. So these are the guys we agreed that you will not log in using your credentials. We will use the social logins. So that brings the need for an authentication server. So on this side, you have the baker, and on this side, you have the customer, and on this side, the other side, you have these guys. So that's how our system looks like. For those of you who are in school and you thought your teacher telling you no level 0 DF context diagram and level 0 DFD, this is it. So in case you are thinking your teacher was not a good guy, you can see that whatever the teacher taught is actually relevant today in the real world. So this we document not because we want to document, but we document because we know that once we document, then we are able to work with other people. So a guy who was not there today, or a person who is not here today, they can actually come and join the conversations and understand what is going through. So each arrow, you need to understand what messages are being sent. So an arrow is essentially an API or an interface. If it's a system to system, we call it API. If it is a human to human, it's called user. Human to system, we call it UI, user interface. But all of them are interfaces. Technically, they are doors into the system. Please note, we are building the box that is in yellow. And as of yesterday, we say that the box that is in yellow is what we call the system that you are creating. So this is our platform, the system in question. So we said yesterday, I know some of you might be like, why are you doing these things and sharing the information with everyone? Because people have created amazing systems. They have not told you how they do it. So we believe an idea is not anything. What matters is the execution. So you can go steal the idea and execute. If you execute better than us, then you will win the market. But for now, it's more beneficial for you guys to see the nitty-gritties of how we create solutions. So as of some of you might have noted, we started with a very basic thing yesterday. We didn't have anything we have written on this notepad. We started with a blank check, and by now you can see we have about 200 lines of information that we recorded regarding this system. The most important thing is we have the product functions. So a baker should be able to place an order, and we have to define the process. A baker should be able to record a payment, and we have that. A baker should be able to mark this as delivered. A baker should be able to see this. And another function that I will add is that a baker should be able to view a customer. Now, sometimes allow me to just tell you something that we do. By now, in the model, I can start thinking about the design, and I will just highlight the model objects that we can see. And here we are now doing something else. We are doing a bit of design. We see the model objects so that we can now craft the experiences that we need. Once we have an understanding of what you're fixing, we can identify the model objects. Data modeling, guys, what have you seen? If you're building a school system, a student is an object. Here, what are the objects that you see? And I want you guys to comment and collaborate on chat like you did yesterday. Paul Njogu, I'm not sure I get your question, but I want you guys to share what model objects do you see in this problem domain? An order is an object. Thank you very much, Munialo. The customer is an object. Thank you. What else? A baker is an object. And when I say objects, you may need to save them. There is another guy who says product. Thank you, guys. And a baker should be able to see business logs. Kagendo, can you explain that? I'm not sure whether you're in a place where logs, what do you mean by a log?
I was maybe asking if the the baker should be able to view like the orders that have been placed and the ones that have gone out and the payments, all in one place.
Okay. So essentially, Martin is bringing another bonus point. You should be able to see, view the business activities, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. You got the word.
Yeah, logs or activities. And I will also mention here and maybe reports and visualization. And I'm happy to hear this because what we are doing now, and I'm just wondering whether I can actually foretell how many days or hours we need for us to finish this thing end to end so that I can allow you guys to dive into other problems in a similar manner. But yes, you have a valid point, Mr. Martin. Any other one? Any other object? The finance, the paying method, Paul Njogu? There are people who are saying finance or maybe payment method is an object that we need to store. What else? There is notification. Thank you. SMS or reminders. So that's a good one, Victor. Anyone else who can see something that we need to store in the system? Mfadhili, do you want to say something? I can see you are in binary mode, 0 and 1. Sorry, you've said products. So I'll call it an SMS, a notification, or a reminder. Feedback, thank you. Molly, I'm so happy to know that even without scrolling up, you guys have a grasp of the things that we're talking about. What else? What else? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, the people who have mentioned these things, one of the things that I'll mention to you later is I would like you guys to go and expand these model objects and give them attributes. So when we meet tomorrow, one of the action points, and I hope you guys will take it, you'll do it. One of the action points is to expand the model attributes based on what we have heard about the requirements of this system. I'll commit this code on GitHub so that you can reference the notes, although they are not in a very good state. I'll still commit them so that you can now use the conversations and look at something. So there was a guy who is called Henry. Thank you very much. Henry has mentioned calendar. Yeah, Henry, calendar. Thank you. But I'll put a star there because a calendar is a visualization tool. A graph is a visualization tool, I think. I don't know whether I'm making sense, Henry. So you don't necessarily store the calendar. All you store are the orders and they have dates. Then when you query them, instead of listing them in a table, you can actually put them in a calendar. Is that okay, Henry? Can we put calendar and put a star because it's a visualization, it's an experience thing. It's not a model object. Thank you, Henry. At least you are accepted. So we need to separate things that we use to visualize, like a graph should not be a model object. It's the data that we are storing that is an object, a record or something that you have to store. Let me see whether we have left out anything. I think we have a baker. Maybe one of the things that I would say as a baker, I don't know whether to separate it, but there could be configs under it. Yeah, e.g., one of the things that you could have the sender ID to be used, EDKKR. It could be a configuration under the baker configurations. Then the other thing that you have to consider, which you guys have left out, is the user. Yes, we still have the, maybe one day, I'll put a question mark. I'll put a question mark. Let me put here, is the baker the user? Or should you create users in the baker? Like the baker is a business and then the user is, it's a question that we have to define and we have to answer. But I would like you guys to suggest on how we can do this tomorrow. So people should come up with suggestions and we'll assign different guys to work on the different objects. Marlene, I hope you can find a way of picking a few guys from this group and each guy can actually get a model object. Marlene, I hope you can help me figuring out that. So that tomorrow they come and tell us an order has these attributes, like a student has an admission number, a name, date of birth. An order has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another model object that we didn't mention is the payment. Thank you. Ideas are coming as we consider. When a payment is made, then a payment has been made, and we have to record the payment and the dates that were mentioned. So what are the action points? One is identify the attributes. And if we identify the attributes of each model object, now once we identify the attributes and identify the relationships with other objects. I know you guys could be NoSQL databases, but kindly allow us to do the way with the traditional mindset of relations, with other objects. E.g., what I mean by that is you can come and say that there is a relationship between an order and a baker. So a baker can have multiple. So it's a one-to-many. So an order can only belong to one baker and a baker. So it's, I don't know, it's many to one, one to many. You guys are good. But just speak it in English. If you can write it in an ER model, well and good. Let me see whether I can. So I hope that's okay. Let's see whether there is another model object we can identify. A baker should be able to place an order. So a baker and order, those are two objects. A baker should be able to record a payment. That's a payment that is tied to an order. Thank you. A relationship discovered there. A baker should be able to mark an order as delivered. That's just a state, a transition diagram. Those guys who heard about states. If you're in school and you had state transitions or state machines, saying that an order can be new and then it can go to confirmed, and then it can move from confirmed to partially paid, and then fully paid, and then delivered or closed. So those states, we call them their finite states or finite states. So if you ever hear a finite state machine, just think of state diagrams and transitions that are supported. So we have an order being, a payment being made on an order, we record a payment, then we transition the state. When the order is delivered, we just transition to a state. A baker should be able to cancel an order. That's a state transition. There is no model object. It's just changing the order from maybe pending confirmation to canceled. And then a baker should be able to receive order reminders. Notifications come in there. Orders are part of that conversation, and maybe reminders when someone mentioned about it. A baker should be able to receive a reminder. Repeat business, that's orders that are there. We check that this order is a birthday. So as part of the order, one of the things that I have discovered to help the guys who will be doing the order, you have to determine the type. I don't know whether you want to call it a type, whether it's a birthday or anniversary. So if it's an anniversary or a birthday, then you know it can repeat. So if it's a company anniversary or whatever, you can know that it can be repeated. Yeah. So something like that. That's an attribute of an order. The order should be able, we should be able to capture that information. Then let's see, should support branded as SMS. Customer should receive order notifications, and a customer should receive payment notifications. A customer should receive delivery notification, process payments. I don't think I can see anything else. I will not talk about these two things for now. I think these ones we will separate them so that we don't mix too much. We'll dive deeper on the payments later. For now, let's focus on the functionalities that involve the baker. For the baker to pay us, that one we can give them a free POC and they can use the system for like 3 months without paying as we work on the feature for payments. So I'll leave it so that we don't complicate the conversations. Pricing of ingredients, we will add it later and we don't need to worry about it at this particular point. So far, any question? At least we've been able to do a recap of the requirements. We have the functional requirements. We have not specified the non-functional requirements, which we will, but I want us first to focus on this. Any questions so far? comment, and I would request that we get someone to comment if we don't have a question.
So I have a question.
Yes. And you can state your name.
Yeah, my name is Paul Njogu.
Yes.
And my question is, what about when you talk about the stock that the baker is supposed to have? Like how many, like the flour, the sugar, the blue band the baker wants to use for the bakery? Like, is it an object that can be placed into the system that can tell that the person can use to record that I need this amount of resources, or I need this amount of flour at this particular time, like that.
Yeah. So what and don't mute fast, Paul Njogu. So we have yes, you have a valid point. There is a baker who actually raised it today morning, and it's true. They have that need, but we have said we are not discussing that for now. The key function right now is just to allow them to record an order. How they make the order, how it's created, the ingredients that are used, how they do the mathematics to know that you'll pay 1,700, including the delivery fees, is not in scope in the first sprint or in the first release, in the MVP that you have to give. So yes, you have a valid point, but it will come when we are now discussing the inventory and the products that can be used. So at the time we do the phase 2, then the order object might change a bit, because now you can say I'm selecting a list of products. Maybe you want 1 kg red velvet, you want half a kg pinnacle, CG what, then you need these cupcakes and all those things, and then you put everything together, and now you can have a nice invoice that is supposed to be done. So essentially, those things and another capability for phase 2 is now fully matured invoicing also. So those ones will come in later, but you're not billing them until the customers tell us that they actually love the product.
Okay, I understand.
Yes. So also when you're doing MVPs, another thing that you're learning, don't try to make things very simple. Attack one problem that they have told you, and put the capabilities that complement that. Whatever you can get rid of, get rid of. But for now, we want to make the ordering process very smooth by ensuring that you have a system that can, I don't have to remember, I delivered the cake, I didn't call the guy to tell them thank you. No, let the system do that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So we will have that as a bonus, and we can have as phase 2 for those guys who love Agile. We can have it in another sprint. Thank you. If anyone has any other question, you can post on the chat, but I will allow ourselves now to move on to the next phase. Marlene, please ensure that you work on a list of who will work on these to-do lists so that we can eventually get guys. And Paul Njogu, I'm not sure whether you have been part of the process from the beginning. I think I saw your name today. Have you been part of the bootcamp?
Not yet, sir. I've been following, but through the YouTube channel, I've been downloading the videos because I've been having a kind of tight schedule. But for now, I think I can try and balance things. Okay,
so no problem.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we said we are not just creating products to throw away. Some of you guys might start your first business. I still don't know how we are going to do it. The legal giants and minds are supposed to think about it, but this thing should be ours. But we also need to have honest conversations on what we should do to ensure that we don't start having cases of, Paul coming and saying, this was my idea. I was the one who did the design. How do we ensure we protect ourselves from the future? But one thing we know for sure, new businesses will be started.
True.
Yes, some of you can already see that. And if you're passionate about an area, we will be calling upon you guys to become and be part of these non-solutions businesses. Yes, that will write the story at the end of the year and tell guys to come and use. Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to mention now, I wanted us to move to the next phase. Now, remember, as of this point, we have not done anything to break this box into small boxes. Now, we are going to break this baked box into small boxes that will have different functions, or some of you who love, they would say, microservices or small services that make up the baked system. For us who studied the traditional way of system analysis and design, we are now moving from the context diagram to level 0 DFD. But for the sake of saving you guys from too much of DFDs and context diagrams, just know we are moving now from the black box. We break it into smaller parts, the same old pattern that has been used since the beginning of the world, divide and conquer. And that's the one we are going to use. So, of course, my division and the separation of the functions of the various services that make up the baked system are very opinionated. What do I mean by that? I basically mean that these are my views. It doesn't mean that they are the only way that these things can work. So I'll go down and I'll break down these services. And since we already know we are building a web app that is supposed to be done by 1, 2, 3, so I'll do the high-level design. And the high-level design, or the HLD, if you ever hear that, some people, you might find organizations, can you share the high-level design? High-level design basically tells you how the various components within your system, in your system, the black box, and how and the functions of each. So the various components, so we will talk about HLD includes the following. So some people might define a new that includes the following. One is the breakdown of the system, what you are calling the black box, into various parts, components. It's more or less when you buy a car, you know there is a carburetor. For those of you who ever heard about carburetors in cars, there is an engine. You know, my dad loves cars, so he has narrated so many times about the various parts of a car, and I am not good at it. I actually not interested in cars and the various elements. But once in a while, car breaks down, and you have to know that there is a thing that is called a sensor. So, but essentially, you'll find that a car is made up of different parts. And the way why you do build a system into various parts that work together to achieve a common whole, and that's what ideally we call a system. It's because of two motivations. Why do we break down? One is because it's just the divide and conquer rule that works. Conquer. I don't know whether that's how it's conquer. English came with the ship and the boats. Na kwetu hakuna bahari. So you can forgive me. Divide and conquer. I think it's, we will find out the correct spelling. So you have divide and conquer, but essentially it also helps in maintaining. You can imagine if the spark plug in the engine got messed up, but it was part of the whole engine. So you can replace, helps in maintaining, you can replace the small parts. Yeah, it also helps even in just evolution. This allows people to work together. There are guys who do research in spark plugs, and that's an area of research. So it's always good to help us in collaboration. But the key things that why, this is why, we are saying the why. But we break down the system into various components. And what are these components? What do we need to specify? First is we need to parts of HLD. So first is you identify the component. Identify the component. And now, sorry, why divide? Sometimes reuse. Yes. Sometimes you could have a service that could be reused in various scenarios. So instead of having the service rewritten 3 times, you can have a service that is external. Everyone who needs that service, you go to the payment gateway. So you can use a payment gateway for various products. Even here as we work, we might discover that the various projects we're working on could reuse some of the components that maybe there is another project that, like I know Collins is working on some to help dairy farmers. A real problem, real people have approached us, just like the bakers, and they want a solution. They still use the physical papers to record the amount of kgs. I hear milk is measured in kgs, not liters. So you record the number of kgs that you have delivered to the cooperative union. And they don't have a system. What are we doing here saying we don't have jobs? So our work is to ensure that we do that. So you might find that that system that requires a component that sends SMS. So we don't have to build 2 components for sending SMSs. We could have one, and different systems can reuse them. So that's why we divide for the sake of reuse also. So identify the components, and for each component, the functions of each component. Now, my friend Peter Mutisia, who leads the developers in Meliora, normally tells us it's good to know what the system does, but it is even more important to know what the system should not do. Most people assume that statement a lot. So when you're doing HLD, it's a way of saying this component should do this, and it should not do this, especially where you feel like it could be abused. So we have the functions of the component, what it should do, and what it should not do where necessary. Thank you. Just like the way when you guys are doing, I know you guys were looking at MVC. You remember the guys who are doing the MVC or even in Spring Boot, when you guys were creating the thing. So you have the controllers. Controllers can do X, then you had the services can do Y, and you had the repositories that could do X. It's one of the things that a controller should not have an SQL statement written in it. Doesn't mean that it is not going to run, but it's a bad design. Because from an architectural perspective, functions or components should have certain functions. And other guys should have other functions. If a guy does X, let not other guy do X. So you need to have those boundaries. They are very important. So you have the functions of each component, what they should do and what they should not do. Essentially here we are setting boundaries. Now, after that, we identify that all these components work together, the interfaces between the component. Now, e.g., let me give an example. Let's assume you have an SMS, a notification component. Its work is just to receive a request and send the email, or receive a request and send an SMS. Now, as part of the payload for sending SMS, there could be 2 where you put your number 2547222XXX. There could be from, where you put maybe it's coming from KCAD in this case, and there could be content, and where it's thank you for your business. Now, the notification service must define the interface that will be used for communication. Just like here, when we were looking at this system, we said the SMS gateway will give us an interface, but even in Baked, there'll be a component that will be dealing with the headache of connecting to the SMS gateway and the email service. If you think about it, someone could actually create a component for sending SMSs and another component for sending email. Or you could have one component, you call it the notification service. Whether you're sending SMS, whether you're sending in-app notifications for Android apps and all that, whether you're sending email, you could have one service that is able to handle that. It becomes too complex, you can break it, divide and conquer. So that's a component that we need to do. So here, I'm not going to write this, but we'll have to, maybe we have an API service that will expose send SMS API or send notification API. And maybe one of the things that you can do is when you are sending, if it's a generic API, it could be used for email, and you could have a method, there may be the type, and the type could be SMS or email. If you say from, it's the email, to is that. And you could have subject that is optional. So it's optional for SMS. So SMS doesn't have subject. Then content could be 1, 2, 3. etc. So essentially we have what? We basically have created the HLD by defining those two. So you need to do that. And there is something else. If there is shared data, data that modules need, like there is a database that two modules need to share, you need to also specify it. Data store that is accessible by various services. I know this is a debatable conversation. Sometimes we are told the microservices should not be tightly coupled, meaning that they should probably store their own data separately. But sometimes you might have a scenario where you bypass that pattern because of a certain benefit. Maybe it will allow you to do rapid development. So that's what you're going to do. Now, I hope you guys are still with me on that. So we are going now to define the HLD, and this will be me doing it. I hope you guys can accept that I'm not a very bad architect by the design that I'm going to give you. But essentially, I will come here and look at the components that are there. Now, please note, as you look at these things of our baked solution, I know right now we are calling baked and immediate, formerly known as Julisha. Yeah, I had a conversation in the morning with someone and we were just thinking, can we just call it baked? Because there is one person who has a person of interest in this idea that has come to us and said, can we make it happen? Yeah. So one of the key things that I can tell you is that we'll have a web app. And our suggestion is we do Angular if we are controlling. That's why we are teaching you guys Angular so that we collaborate. But we will see whether this is okay. This is a web app. So this is I saw someone, a single page application. Those SPAs, if you can think of, and we can use Angular or something else. Our recommendation is to use Angular because of some tool that you want to use for generation, rapid development. Now, there is an API, which if we are to use that tool, we will do Spring Boot APIs. So if you want to create an order, this web app will expose a form, and forms will be here, the list and the calendars, as our brother, I don't know whether who was the guy who mentioned about the calendar, or it was Henry. So we will use that for that. So there'll be an API service. So we can call it an API service. One of the other things that we will do is we'll have a database. So that's another component. So this especially will be consumed by the API service. So I'll mention what the functions of each and the APIs it needs to expose. I think we have talked about interfaces that need to be exposed. The interfaces that need to be exposed. And then we have the API service, and then you have the database service. Our recommendation is to use an SQL DB. We can use MySQL or MySQL, depending on who was your teacher. And the reason for that is because we have some good experience in optimizing MySQL databases to ensure that they can handle traffic. But we could look at how to, the database doesn't matter, especially if you're using JPA. You could change one day. We can use whatever that you have initially, but you can move now to MongoDB, Cassandra, depending on the expertise that you guys have. So as I said, it's very opinionated, but it will help us appreciate how to break your services. Now, another service that I can see is actually the notification service. Now, the notification service will have the following function. One, it will be able to connect to SMS gateway or sending SMS. It will also be connect to email server or sending email. It will expose APIs to send SMS, to send notification. So that's what I was talking about. So we can agree, and I know by now you guys know REST APIs and all that, JSON-based APIs. So we can craft these together. This module just needs one, the interfaces. So it just needs interfaces are two. We have inbound Inbound is incoming door for people to talk to us, then outbound. So you can come and do the outbound and you can say this. So the inbound would be send notification API, only one, just to send a notification. And the notification can either be that. The outbound could be send SMS API and send email API. Now, this one, who will be consuming? This is to the SMS gateway. So you can talk of this inbound. You can also call it northbound. If you think of this as a box and guys talking to the notification box, the southbound are the guys who are connected. We are connecting to this. So we have that. So we have send email API to send the email to email server. Sometimes email servers, they are called SMTP servers. Yes. Thank you. Up to that point, we have the notification. So you can see how notifications will go out and you can see how that will go out. Do we need another specialized service? Yes, we need a payment service. So let me call them services in the spirit of calling them microservices. Now, if you guys can consider what you did, it means that this will be a Docker image, this will be a Docker image, a project and a project. You'll expose pods and all those things that we talked about. Now, the work of this guy, what will it be? The function of this guy is to receive a payment request from other modules and send and forward it to the payment gateway. It can also receive payment notifications from the payment gateway. Like M-Pesa, sometimes you can pay to a C2B and KCB needs to be notified. Customer paying to a business, like when you pay to a pay bill, it is triggered. So the system can receive payment notification from the payment gateway and forward it to the inner modules. Sometimes when you're discussing these, you'll come and discover that now we have new model objects. Like you still need the payment information. When you're talking about the payment, these as part of the Baker, you need to have the payment details. So again, we are going to the model, e.g. the MSISD and the mobile number, in case people pay to a mobile number, or the till number, or the short code, the pay bill number. etc. But it's something that once we receive a payment for a pay bill number X, we know this belongs to Carol. And we go to the Baker Carol, we see that this is a payment that has come from this guy. This is the mobile number. We go check the customer and we discover that there is this customer with this number. We check the order that they have. We discover they have a pending order. We just account the message. We record the payment and we allocate the money to the order that they had placed. Now, by the time I'm talking about that, I'm actually talking about something that we have highlighted here. I'm basically giving you the process modeling, the process of receiving a payment and what should be done by the system. So you don't need to be a developer. You don't need to know how to write code for you to actually define that. Yes. So we have the payment service. So we have seen how, and now we are validating. Remember, as you're doing all these things, you have to validate what you're doing with the initial context diagram. So we know, okay, the SMS gateway, inside there, there is a notification service that connects to the SMS gateway. The same notification service connects to the email server. Okay, we're good. Payment gateway, there is a payment service that connects to the payment gateway. This payment gateway could be, we connect to maybe Cellulant, we connect to one of our friends, they call themselves TenderPay, or sometimes we might decide to connect directly to the telcos. But sometimes you can connect to maybe one of those guys, iPay, Cellulant, all those guys who are providing payment services. Now, if we do so, then we have dealt with the functions, the configurations of these things. Now, there is also auth server. The auth server, I don't want a service to do this. I want this guy should be able to connect to the auth server, the API service function should be able to connect the auth server. So that's a function. And the API service should be able to support the CRUD of the model objects. So we are doing sort of a hybrid of our microservice monolith. So APIs to create APIs to create orders, they'll be exposed here. So all the model objects will be managed from here. So you can update a customer, you can create a customer, you can do that. Create, read, update, delete, and those filters that you need to do, plus the filters that you guys filters and searches for all the model objects. Now we are doing this because we want to do these things very quickly. So the API service will do that. One of the things that I've told you is that we will generate a lot. Now, inbound APIs, all CRUD APIs to be consumed by the web app. I think there was a guy, and I remember I didn't answer your question in the previous session. I don't know whether this guy is there today. I don't know if it's Alvin. Alvin, are you there? Mbuka. Today he has done a blue tick on us. So we have all the CRUD APIs, we have all the incoming APIs, all the APIs to be consumed by the web app. And then outbound. Now, please note, when an email is being sent, the API service here, remember here we can say the API service uses the Spring Boot architecture. The service can actually connect, send email, or send SMS, send email notification, and it can also send SMS notification via to the notification service. So it's clear that the API service sometimes can talk to this guy. Now it can also talk to send auth requests to the auth server, to the external auth servers. Now, I know you might not understand why are we not going directly, why not creating another service here inside Baked that connects to the auth servers. There is no need because some of these, like Spring Boot, comes with plugins for social login. So we don't need to separate that. So if the API service can do that, we just configure the credentials for Google, Facebook, and all that on the API service, and we just use out of the box. Why should I break a function that we already have tools to create it using that? So I'm using that because of the opinionated view that we can use Spring Boot and the generators that we need for that. Now, another thing that we need to know that this guy will do, the API service will also talk to, send a payment request to the payment service. Payment service. When I say payment service, it's internal. When I say external, it means that the payment service, which is internal, talks to the payment gateway, which is external. So inside this Baked, there is a payment service that will create a small module that will be forwarding the message to this guy. In the event we decide to change from one payment gateway to the other, guess what? We are not changing anything in the system. We just go and change that small module. And that's why we are saying maintenance is a big consideration for modularization. Because when you decide to change a thing, you will change one thing without affecting the other things. So if you want to change a tire, you don't worry about the engine because of the modularization that we have adopted. So that's it. Let me see whether there is anything that we have not talked about. Yes, because of the use case that we mentioned that the payment gateway could send a payment request triggered by an external factor. E.g., you go to M-Pesa app and you decide that you want to pay to the pay bill. Remember that request was not initiated through Baked. So it will come to Baked as a notification. So we should also support receive Or maybe what we could do is we could have another service, a small payment service. Where is the payment service? It should have an interface to receive, yeah. Interfaces. We have inbound. Send a payment request or pay request. And someone wants to pay. And outbound, you also do a payment request, a payment API. So you receive a payment request, you forward it to the outbound system, which here we are talking about the payment gateway. Yep. I hope I'm not confusing you guys. We just have to, it's only that I'm writing these things on Notepad. But ideally, once you discuss on a whiteboard, we could draw the sequence diagram. You say, this request comes here, this guy forwards to this guy forwards to this guy. And as you're forwarding that, please note, we said services expose ports for the sake of communication. So you'll have like an API, an IP address, a port, and the resource if you're using HTTP for the communication. So let me see whether there is anything that I've left. You have to run through. So the function of the DB is to store our data. So we can assume now we have a central DB, but sometimes you could find the notification service uses its own DB. But for the sake of ensuring that we use the same web portal for accessing all the objects, we can use a very simplistic way for rapid development. We have a common DB, and then this guy accesses the same DB, and the web app calls the API service, which calls the DB to gather data. So it stores, the function of this guy is store model data. Are there interfaces? The interfaces are basically the database DB interfaces. Like in Java, there is JDBC, which is not anything you have to build within your code, e.g. JDBC in Java. So you connect to a DB using a thing called JDBC, which is essentially Google how to connect to a DB. By the time you get the source code, you have already implemented JDBC interface. So don't worry. It's nothing that you should be worried about. Now, allow me to split so that I can, I split my screen so that I can do a quick check to validate that we have captured everything according to the functional requirements. So let me come here and look at the functions. And we have a baker should be able to place an order. They'll place it on the web app. They'll place it on the web app. They create from the web app. The web app calls an API. That API calls a DB. So we are covered. And of course, if the order has to send notification, the API service will call the DB and save the order. But at the same line, in the service layer, the service will also call a notification to the notification service. So it will be like web calling the API guy saving into the DB, and the API guy saving or sending a request to the notification service. So the business logic is implemented on the API service. So by the time we state that, the developers, I know if we had a lot of time, we could have done even the low-level design of these components. But because of time, we will not go down to the low-level designs. But we'll work with you guys so that you define on how each of the modules will work. So we will leave the developers to define the low-level design, but we will define the process that is involved. Like the way I'm describing the order process. How does it look like? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's part of the process modeling. And as you define the process, you will discover you need data to make decisions. So sometimes you might have to change your data model to fit the process that you have. So that's okay. That is it in terms of the low-level design, the high-level design. So if you actually create a document that has all these components and that has all the interfaces that these components expose, and that has the function of these components, you have basically created the high-level design. So I don't know whether there is anyone with a question up to that point, because we are done with the HLD, and what we have not done is now the low-level designs, the process modeling, and the data modeling. Data modeling, we've already started. Now, the other question is the process modeling. But I feel like we might not dive into process modeling for now. But I want you guys to ask questions if you have any questions. If you do not have any questions, we will just identify the processes that we need to fulfill in the system and the experiences that we need to create in the system. So that now that can influence the conversation that we'll be having in the coming session, which I hope it will be tomorrow by Faith, probably in the afternoon, because I know I might be engaged in the morning hours. But I would love us to move now to the next phase where you now see the LLDs and the HLDs. Now, for those of you who are wondering, now, do you send these notes to the team? No. If you're dealing with a project, like let's say, for example, NCBA is your customer and you're building a solution for them. So you have to put this document in a very nice Word document that says, you know, these are the functional requirements. This is the architecture that we have. And in each of the components, we'll also say their services, they'll run in containers, all those things you mentioned as the details of the design and the implementation. And you'll also mention that the API service can actually scale horizontally. So you can have 3 containers of the API service that can receive traffic and send it to the different guys. By the end of the 3 weeks, I'm sure you guys will have done this for us. That one I know for sure. So just be patient. And did I say for us? We'll have done this thing for us. When I say for us, I mean for all of us. Don't get scared and you're like, you know what, this guy is just looking for people to work. Oh, no. We are creating solutions for people. After that, we can have conversations. It's easier when we have something, and we should not debate when we don't have anything. Yeah. So that's what we believe. So you'll be able to do a very nice diagram. Now, what I would do when I'm doing the HLD, I'll open a new sheet of paper and I would come here and I'll say here there is a web app. And that web app now connects to the API. And even that, now I'm doing a HLD diagram so that if you know software, I know some of you might have never charged for software. You charge in millions. You don't charge in millions because of the code that you wrote that looks very nice. Most of the time, it's the documents that look very nice. So you can say here it's Java, Spring Boot. You go there, and there is a guy there. Then you can say here it's Angular project if you have. Now, the API service connects to the DB. So you come and just drag this and say the DB service. And this DB service is at the center there. And then the API service also connects to the notification service. And then this notification service also connects to the payment service. Is it payment? Yes, payment service. And yeah, so we are looking at how the API service looks like, and you can make it wider because now this now brings that, and maybe we can make this wider. When I say the web app, it has, you know, the CSS, HTML, and all that you have to do. Then you have the DB here. Let me just come here and put the DB there. Then this guy connects to the payment service, and then the payment service connects to what? Which other module do we have, guys? Notification, payment, and we have the database. One of the services that I have not mentioned that I think we need to add is we need to add a batch service. Now, the batch service is the service whose function, batch service, his function is to handle background processes. So e.g., you should be able to scan orders that are due and generate a what? Generate a reminder. So you could think of such a thing. So this is the batch. It's doing things on the background or something that you can call the batch service. So it can wake up in the morning, check all the systems at 8 a.m. and look for all the orders that are due by Friday. If the configuration is 2 days, you check today's, the order is on Saturday, today is Thursday. You just check and discover this meets the condition, generates an SMS according to the template that is defined by the business. And then based on that, now is able to send the messages to the customer. So we have added a new service called the BAT service. Now the BAT service, does it expose APIs? The BAT service. So the BAT service connects to the DB. And then we have another service that I would like to highlight. Let's see whether we have another service, database, API service, and all that. Let me just come here and just say batch. So if there are other services we need to create, then that's it. So here I can come and minimize it, and so that I give it there. And then I can come here and minimize this, so that I give it 2. And then I come and minimize this, so that I give it 3. And then we can come and now share if you want to see now the external modules. So I can come here and come and do that and say that now we have this is our system. And if someone wants to know how the system, I can send this to back. And then I can come here and now put the external systems. Remember the context diagram was saying that you have a payment gateway. So the payment gateway is here. So we are doing designs now. This is part of the design. Again, there are better designs that you can have out there. So this is because of me, SMS gateway. Which other one? And you have the, yep. For now, we are dealing with that. Payment gateway, email server. Then you have the SMS payment gateway. And then finally, we have what? We have the other guy called the auth server. So this now double clicks the black box to another smaller box. So these are services. So for those of you who have done Docker, these things will be Docker containers, or we might decide to assemble a few of them into one module, like the API and the app could be hosted on the same container. So this is the actor, the customer. And this is who? This is the baker. So if you note what we have done is we have moved now into what you used to call the DFD. So if you want to maintain the arrows, then you can maintain the arrow. Then you say this guy now connects directly to the web app. And this guy connects directly to the web app also. Yeah, so that guy connects to the web app. So they basically interact with the UI. And of course, this guy connects to this guy. So the web app never talks to the notification service. It talks to the API, and this guy talks to these guys. So that's a design. So if you're told to build the notification service, then you know who will call the notification service and what scenarios will lead to the calling of the notification service. So allow me to finish this, and then we can end in a few. Please ask any questions on the chat as I finish. Now, the DB, I can leave an arrow, an empty arrow that is like that. And for the SMS gateway, we can now come and say this guy talks to the SMS gateway, and the notification service talks to the SMS. Those arrows are interfaces, or what you guys used to call data flows, if you're using the old model, UML and all those things that you used to use in modeling of your system. Yep. So the payment gateway, the payment service talks to the payment gateway. This guy sometimes might talk to this guy. Sorry. Maybe I could do this. I know what has happened here. I can come here and maybe I can just do this. And very bad design. You don't put arrows moving. Like the BAT service can generate notifications. See, that's, yep. The BAT service can check who is ready to be notified today, and we generate notifications for that guy. So essentially, we have technically done the high-level design. In a nutshell, there are many details that I've not added, but it's just a divide and conquer rule. Now, with this information, we can break our teams and tell a certain team to work on notification, another team to work on payment, another team to work on batch, another team to work on API, another guy to work on web app. And by doing so, we have facilitated collaboration. So what I said earlier is that we do this so that we make our systems more maintainable, and we also do it to allow us to reuse, and it also allows us to work together. It's essentially you divide and conquer. So any complex challenge, as long as you divide it, you can conquer. And sometimes you might find yourself, you're dealing with a service that is still complex, and you break it further into a lower level design. And at that particular point, you can talk about another layer of abstraction at this point, and you break it further now to decompose it into other smaller services that do whatever you're supposed to do. So if you have been told, what do architects do? This is what they do. What we have is an architecture. Yeah. So I don't know whether there is anyone with a question, or can I use the last 10 minutes now to just talk about what do we expect in the next conversation. When performing upgrades or restructuring the systems after implementation, this is Mfadhili. At what point does the designer make the correction to the existing design, or do they make another new design? Ideally, you're supposed to, if let's say, for example, when you're implementing, we started with this, we realize that, yeah, this is a bad idea. And we meet in a boardroom and decide to add a new component or break one component into various parts. You need to come and update this design if it's a small change. But Mfadhili, what I would tell you is that when you design the architecture, this architecture is our first architecture. And when you're buying a system, you'll find that the first release we'll give it will be version 1.00. If you are doing major 1A.X.A.B.C, the A is the major version, the B is the minor version, and the C is major, minor, and the last one is normally the build. So major is if you change the architecture, sometimes you can redo the whole system afresh. Maybe we had designed our system as a monolith, one system that has everything. So in the event we want to change the design, we might have to do everything afresh if the design is totally new. Like sometimes you have ever heard of guys talk about you are using, let's say, allow me to give an example with a system that you guys are not using, but when you are doing an implementation of one of the systems from a vendor, we did an implementation of version 1.2. Then later we upgraded to 1.3. And then all of a sudden they moved to version 5. There is no version 3, there is no version 4, there is no version 2. They just did version 5. And what that meant, Mfadhili, is they actually wrote a fresh, new architecture. Maybe the other one was using DBQs, now they're using Redis, Memcache, or they're using other technologies that are different from the initial version. So there are many times when you're restructuring or changing the system, it's always good to come and update the documentation. Otherwise, you'll pay the debt. So the guys who are making changes, they need to come and update the architecture if what you're doing changes the architecture. Yep. So Mfadhili, that's so the design is part of the development process, and sometimes you could have to update the documents. Consider that. Is there anyone who feels like this is something that is doable, something that you can do even yourself, breaking down the system into different parts and breaking services that are very domain specific? And that's a way of separating the services, like payment APIs should be put together in the payment service. Messaging APIs should be put together in the messaging service or the notification service. Then another guy. So there are many ways of dividing the functions. But we're just saying that if you find that you want to send a WhatsApp message, then naturally it makes sense to add that function of the notification service. Don't add the logic to connect to WhatsApp on the web app or even here, because it's a bad design, because we have separated this thing based on the domain. Anything notification related let the notification service work on it. Yeah. So, wow, that's too much information in one session, but I hope you guys are still with me. And I will now move to the next and the last part to allow you guys now to prepare for the next session. Now, normally when you're working together, I know you guys had Kina Wesley here. When Wesley and Tim are working together and they're creating a solution for such a system, I know Nancy and Tim use a lot of nice tools, Figma and stuff like that. But what we do is, to save on time, we actually draw on paper first. So at this particular point, you'll have to consider the experience, what to consider. The key experiences we want to give. And the key experiences and processes in the system. We need to identify them. Then we agree and discuss and see what we need to do. E.g., one of the things that we have to consider ourselves, the key experiences. So there is either the sign up, which I will not talk about that, and the login. So the sign up, we have said it's social. So you will be told to sign up with Google or Facebook. So I'll not discuss that. If I told you to draw the sign up page, you will be easy. Sign up and sign in. So that one you can come up with it. We will not focus about it. But one of the things that I'll mention, once you log in, what do you see? Now, once you log in, you need to have a landing page experience. What can the user do? Just like when I go to Google, I know Google supports many things, but when I go to google.com, this is my landing page experience. So there is a big search button that is there. It is influenced by the user. So I want you guys to consider that and document what you need to ask. You need to ask yourself, what do you think the user will be coming there to do every single day? And sometimes you can assume, but you can validate your assumption with the user. E.g., I can have a suggestion that when the user comes, maybe most frequently, most often than not, they search for a customer. So you could come and create a page, a landing page that has various components. So just a search button that is very user-friendly. So you start by typing Boniface Mutea, and you start getting Boniface Mutea, because maybe they just want to check the profile of a customer. Now, the search button that allows them to search what? Search customer with a name that they have. Now, but even before you search, I can always assume, and this one I'm making an in as a baker. You realize one of the things that they have mentioned is that they forget. How can we eliminate them from forgetting? Maybe we can show them the upcoming orders. Just an upcoming orders. That could be the upcoming orders. It could be a calendar, or it could be a list with the latest, the most recent at the top. So you can have orders, pending orders. So that if you have an order today, that order will be probably at the top. Tomorrow's order will be there, so that they can do a quick scan. I'm just giving an example of how we can do that. Now, the other experience that you have to discuss is search in place an order. How does it look like? You have to ask yourself. We have mentioned that. So let's come up with experiences to place an order. And once we place an order, how is the experience of creating a customer? Now, one of the things that I want to challenge you guys, and I normally mention this to everyone that I meet when we are talking about experience, you have to think of the most smooth experience possible from your own perspective. Don't be quick to do UIs. I normally say that if I told you guys to build an app where I can send a message to another person, and that message could be textual, and there is from, to, the content, and probably I can attach a few messages. I know some of you might design a form with, just like an email client that has, from to, you come here and say from, then you come here and say to, and then you come and have a big search box with content and you say message, and then you have a button here with a plus and you say attach. What I was describing to you, and this is from, this is to, and this is the message. So some of you might give me such a thing. But when I was describing what I was describing, I just wanted a service that could work like WhatsApp. And of course, I know some of you would actually go ahead and give me, 2 buttons for clicking. You can attach. After you attach a file, then you can attach. And then at the bottom there is a big, nice button that is well styled that is called send. And maybe it's in a different color. This is not what I meant. It's all about experience. So you have to think thoroughly and ask yourself, should I force the user to create a customer, then place an order? Or should I ask them to just provide the details? And if I don't find the name of the customer, I just show fields where they can put some few details about the customer. And then you save the customer without telling them, go here, then do this. Otherwise, you'll have to do your user guide. And as I said earlier, I don't like doing user guides because they help you run away from a good usable system that you can create. So this is not what I wanted. I wanted you to create WhatsApp. I don't want such experiences because they probably do not. How do you create a customer experience? How can you merge this in a beautiful way with adding an order? So that if you're adding an order for a guy who you have never taken an order from them before, then the experience is very smooth. Now, record payment experience. How does it look like? What else have we talked about? And we also have another experience that we have to consider. So here I'm inviting the UI gurus and the UX gurus to come and design something very nice. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I want to get some of you guys coming up with proposals as we move to the next phase, because this is what you'll be doing next week for your challenge that we'll have selected for you, and that you'll also have selected for yourself. So if you accept to work on a challenge, Marlin and I and the rest of the team are working hard to ensure that we get the challenges clear and we get the users clear. The users available to support you in the process. So you have said, record an order experience, record a payment experience, cancel an order experience. All those things are things that we said are user stories and user things that can be done. What else can we do? What is the experience of let me just come here and split. Then I come to the functions and I look at the experiences. So you're supposed to list all these things and consider that with the fact that you can do this. Yeah, so I'll also add Baker's settings experience. I know there'll be some settings that we'll create. Maybe what's the sender ID? How will it look like? Can I reset my password and all those things? Oh, sorry, you're not resetting password because you're logging in using social. So let me look at the function requirements. They help us define the experience. We've seen how to place an order. We've seen how to record a payment. You have to mark an order as delivered experience. So here you're looking, and you have to do it in a very nice way for both mobile and that. We have said that it needs to be mobile friendly. This one is a baker can be able to receive order or reminders. Should be able to receive a reminder for potential customers. Should be able to see Yeah. So you can say also view order experience. Basically, I don't want to, let's say view order, like what's just the order experience? How do you cancel an order? How do you record a payment? How do you see the payment history of a specific order? Because someone could pay multiple payments. So that's it. And then the next thing that we'll discover now, these are experiences. We will come and look at the processes. And for the processes, we will also give you a guide on how to identify the processes that you are supposed to work on. Yes. So I don't know how to proceed with this, but for the experiences, I want you guys to help us, and we come up with something tomorrow, and we will share with you guys. So just to close the conversation, I can just do a quick recap and tell you that we have done a few things regarding the designing. At least you have an idea of how to do it. We have spoken to a real user, so we are modeling a real world problem. We have done a bit of data modeling. I'm not the one who came up with a list of the model objects. We have not finished yet. We have done HLD, which is architecture work, and you can do LLD. Sometimes you may not do LLDs. Once you do the process modeling and you refine the process, you can use now that to tell the developer. On this API, it's supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4. That's basically the process. And that's what we pass now to the developers for them to implement. So we have done specified, we are designing, and soon we will develop, and we are collaborating in the same. So that's essentially what you'll be doing in the next few weeks. Nothing new, but you have to work together because software engineering involves people and not just the users. You cannot ignore the engineers that have to work together. So that's it. Unless there is any other question.